Hello, and welcome to episode 43 of the West Aurora 129 podcast. I'm Superintendent Dr. Michael Smith, and I'm grateful to continue our journey through the district, shining a light on the dedicated individuals who lead our schools and shape the educational experience of our students. Over the past few episodes, we've had rich conversations with principals, some from our elementary and middle schools, exploring their unique school cultures, their pathways to leadership, and their perspectives on guiding staff and students toward success. Today, we shift our focus primarily to the high school level, where students pursue their goals through both traditional and alternative educational pathways designed to meet their diverse needs. At the helm of West Aurora High School, a school deeply rooted in tradition and widely recognized for its robust academic offerings and extensive extracurricular opportunities, our principal, Dr. Whitney Martino, and associate principal, Mr. Dave Sally. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us here.
And now we turn our focus to the Blackhawk Academy, an alternative academy serving students from all four middle schools and West Aurora High School. Leading the specialized learning environment is interim principal David Aguilar. David, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First, David, to build some context for our listeners, Blackhawk Academy is a unique setting that serves students through three distinctive programs. Can you briefly describe each of them and the learners they serve?
Yes, of course. So let's start off with Transition. Transition is our program geared for our 18 to 22-year-olds who have met the graduation requirements. These students have special needs in which they are focusing on vocational training and independent lifestyles. So our program focuses on those, and their IEP goals have that independence and focus in mind. Then I'll talk about our Connections program. Our Connection program also focuses on students with IEPs, specifically 9th through 12th graders. Our program for these students helps them support some social emotional development as well as their academics and behavior piece as well. And then our last program is our Success program, which encompasses our four middle schools and our high school, West High. And these students are general education students that need more support in academics, behavior support, and social emotional development.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the detail on the different programs at the Academy. There's a lot going on there, I would say, huh?
Oh, yes.
Very good. Now, speaking of connections and intentionality, and this is open for any of you, can you talk about how West Aurora High School and Blackhawk Academy work hand in hand to place students in the appropriate environment to truly guide them toward success?
Yeah, so I think clearly that process is going to start at the high school level. And first and foremost, we aim to ensure that all interventions and supports at the building level have been utilized for these students. These decisions aren't made flippantly. As Mr. Aguilar outlined, obviously a smaller, more supportive environment can be highly beneficial, and a vast majority of students would thrive in such a setting. So what we task our houses with, and Patrick Eshman is our assistant principal, kind of oversees our house system comprised of deans, social workers, counselors, psychologists. We want them to obviously exhaust all the resources within the building, as well as some of the community partnerships we have, and then ultimately identify those students who would be the most suitable candidates for placement at Blackhawk Academy. Something I've really learned to appreciate about our district's approach to these ALOP and alternative placements is that they're designed to be temporary. And the second a student arrives with Dave at Success Academy, they're already talking about setting goals and plan a potential path back to West High. And then finally, just give Dave kind of a shout out to him and his team. Obviously, us having these conversations at the high school level with parents, it can be a little unnerving and uncomfortable. And there's certainly preconceived notions and I would say even stigmas associated with the term alternative campus. But once we get them over there for a tour and get them around Dave and his team, most of those subside very quickly, and the students are excited to start in the new, smaller, supportive environment.
That's awesome. And Mr. Aguilar, to Mr. Sally's point, you highlighted the fact that not only for West High, but you follow that similar process with four of our middle schools as well.
Yes. So very similar to what Mr. Sally stated. The process really starts at our, whether at West High or our four middle schools, getting in touch with their administration there, setting up those parent meetings. And on day one, which we call our intake meeting, we really strive a pathway or a success plan, what we call it, for the students' eventual return back to their home school.
I love that. And I love that you're speaking in proactively in that it's a success plan. And that's what's identified regardless of the pathway. There are on-ramps and off-ramps that students take, but the idea is still heading them toward the destination of success, which is graduation and positive transition into our community and beyond.
I think a really cool thing that we also just want to highlight for us is that Mr. Aguilar and his team also on SIP days or admin meetings, we're all a part of that together. So Mr. Aguilar attends our admin meetings. On SIP days, we look for ways to collaborate with staff so that it is a seamless transition, but also to know, we want to always know what's going on with our students that are at Blackhawk, how they best transition back, but even just academically, what are the things that we can do to partner to make sure that it's a successful transition?
You stole what I was about to say. What a definition of partnership. That's awesome. Now, changing gears a little bit, I want to talk to the three of you about your experience. And specifically, I don't know if our audience knows, all three of you are stepping into new leadership roles this year. But you're not new to District 129. And in fact, each of you served in various capacities within the district before this. And I don't have an identified person to speak first. I would like to hear from all of you. But can you talk about how your prior experience have informed your leadership style as you settle into your new responsibilities this year?
Yeah, so this is actually my 14th year in West Aurora School District. And I've loved this place. I think everybody knows when talking to me how much I love this district and what it's done for myself in my own career, but also my family. I started out as the assistant principal for activities. And I always look back and say, was that my favorite job? It still might be. So it still might be the best job I've ever had. So for 3 years, I was in that role. And what I learned from that role is just watching students excel in a comprehensive high school that offers so many opportunities in activities, athletics, and fine arts. And getting them to see them outside of an academic classroom and just the lessons they learn there. And I think that has really informed my leadership in supporting and promoting that programming. 3 years in that role, and then moved into the role of assistant principal for teaching and learning. And, really the heart of a school around what we do every day, how we support teachers and classrooms and students. And that has informed my leadership just to understand the complexity of a classroom, the complexity of what goes on in that role, and what an experience looks like for kids freshman year to 12th grade, so that we can really prepare them for life beyond high school.
That's good. That's good. Dave, how about you?
Yes,
when I say Dave, I'm going to say Mr. Sally. There's two of you on the broadcast, I guess.
So my 9 years here, I've been super fortunate to start as a dean, then move to an assistant athletic director role. From there to an assistant principal for student services, and then this year, the associate principal role. In terms of the role that had the biggest impact on my leadership style, I kind of have to go back to where it all began, and that was in the dean's office. And I truly believe anyone aspiring to be an administrator should go be a dean at West Aurora High School. Just the volume, the pace, the scope of the work you do is unlike anything I've experienced. And I think from the outside, people view that role as being kind of steeped in negativity and delivering bad news. But the way I viewed it is just this long, ongoing exercise in problem solving and solution-oriented thinking. And the best part is that you're never doing it alone. As a dean, you have that house support with that team to back you. And then you also have support upwards too, like whether it was Whitney, Dan Durbin, Ron Murphy, Dr. Hiscock, and even further up the line to Marty Nearing, Dr. Craig, and now you, Dr. Smith, the support. It was always there. We want to make sure, as we're now in these leadership roles, we don't want people working in isolation.
100%.
And regardless of their role, we want them to have their team, their immediate team. And then beyond that immediate team, I hope every staff member feels the same level of support and approachability from Whitney's office and my office that I was fortunate to have in that dean role when I started.
We talk about frontline. The dean's role for sure is a frontline role, because many times that's the administrator the students know and can connect with. So I appreciate that you highlighted that. Mr. Aguilar, how about yourself?
All right. So for me, this is my third year in the district. I started off as a dean at Character House at West High. And then in that role, Character House is a little unique in that it houses the multilingual student populations at West High. So that just gave me some exposure to our multilingual students in the district. And then there was an opening the following year for the multilingual curriculum coordinator. So that was my role last year in helping support our multilingual learners, and of course the department, including the teachers and staff. From there, this opportunity came to be an interim principal at Blackhawk. Myself, I've always been able to connect with students that are at risk. I myself had a troublesome youth. So those experiences, my personal experience, as well as my professional experiences, have really kind of led me to this role and this path in which I really do make intentional connections with students.
Sure.
Really try to support staff in. Any alternative program is a second chance of making different choices. And that's what I'm all about, because that's my personal life has been all about second chance.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for sharing that. In our earlier episodes, we've highlighted the importance of culture and community at the building level. High school and alternative settings bring unique challenges and opportunities. How would each of you describe the culture you're striving to cultivate in your buildings this year? And Mr. Aguilar, I'm going to start with you, and I want to pivot off of what you just said with how you've tried to approach your role as an administrator. How have you tried to enhance or support the culture of Blackhawk as you stepped into this role?
My leadership style at Blackhawk really kind of focuses on my leadership, transparency, and also communication throughout the building. So for me, I tend to focus on those little connections, the small conversations with staff, the little things, is whether that's getting payday treats organized. That goes a long way with our staff. As far as transparency, just making sure that what we set out to accomplish is being communicated and checked in on a regular basis, and that the overall message is very positive and inclusive, in which you're tapping into the opinions and the perspectives of all the staff members involved, including parents and our stakeholders in the building, throughout our building.
That's good. There's a speaker, Brene Brown, I believe I can attribute this quote to her, that is, clarity is kind. You talk about transparency. You'd be surprised at the frustration that comes when people don't know the direction they're supposed to go in. So I appreciate you highlighting that as part of your leadership. Dr. Martino, Mr. Sally, how about the culture at West High? It's not a small place, so this is quite a task. What do you think?
Yeah, at West High, we are really looking to prepare our students academically with skills and mindsets to help them choose their post-secondary path. So we are just very proud of the different opportunities we have to expose kids to a variety of pathways as we prepare them for life after high school. So we think about options that might lead to college, a 4-year degree, or a 2-year associate's, but we also want to include certificate programs and credential programs, and all of the different ways that they can get involved early in their academic career so that they understand, I'm a freshman, I'm taking biology, but how does that fit into what I want to do after I graduate?
Sure.
Where does that fit into my plan? And really help them see the relevance of the high school curriculum and how it helps them be prepared for whatever they choose to do once they leave us.
Sure.
And we also want students to leverage their experiences in our robust athletic activity and fine arts programming so that they use those skills and experiences that they've learned there to help them be resilient, be accountable, stay connected. Some of those are the mindsets that we really want to instill and create that culture where they see how it fits into what they do once they graduate.
Sure, that's good. Shai, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think, as you alluded to earlier, we're in a super unique spot where both assistant principals, the principal, and myself, we're all coming into new roles, and so that's naturally going to kind of bring some new perspectives towards culture. The thing I wanted to highlight that I'm most proud of with our building thus far is we've engaged our staff through some committee work, created 7 committees, each linked to one of our SIP goals. And the measurable components on the school report card. And, we all know committees are hard. They're difficult. It's time consuming. It's a lot of different opinions. It's trying to find a common focus among a very different group of people. Mm-hmm. And that being said, we're 4 months in and we've engaged about 100 of our staff members in this committee work.
Sure.
And I'm chairing the graduation rate. And I know each meeting gets a little clearer. And I think it's been a fantastic way for us to bring our staff on board and build that culture where they feel like they're heard and are working together to solve these issues.
And from what I know of the staff, they're connected, they're engaged, but being a part of the process of leadership and empowering them as part of what you all are trying to do is pretty awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And there is something that most folks don't have an opportunity to see, but those that work at the high school, and I've seen it, you stand in the hallway during passing period and you see how students just manage matriculating from one class to the other together without issues. issue. Dr. Martino, you talk about some of those skills that you're looking to help students foster and establish within themselves. Just being able to engage and get along with other people not like you, imagine that in our world today, is something that students who graduate from West High have in spades. I mean, they're already ahead of the game in terms of working through our system, aside from those highlighted opportunities that you just spoke to. So that's great. Now we're going to specifically look at the administrator here. And a common theme, something that we've asked before, is we know that being a building leader is never boring. We call them in the business opportunities, right? But what might surprise our listeners about the complexity or variety of responsibilities that you juggle each day as principals and administrators? What do you think? Let's go, Mr. Sally.
You guys start.
Okay, he deferred.
I'll get some ideas down.
I was trying to rotate. One of the things I wanted to highlight, at West High, it is such a large place. And we think about the number of staff members that are there on any given day. And one of the things I'd like to highlight is we do really focus on what are the systems and structures that we have in place to handle whatever comes up. Because the reality is at the high school, the principal isn't handling the day to day, that my role is really to make sure that the school is structured in a way so that things can get handled right away as they need to, and who are the people that handle that. So for me, it really is about hiring good people, the right people, and getting them what they need to do their job so that we can address student concerns, parent concerns, classroom issues in a timely fashion that doesn't have to get solved in the principal's office.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, we are not the micromanagey type. I think Whit nailed it. We believe in hiring good people and giving them space to do their work. And in turn, that allows us to be available to troubleshoot and problem solve anything that comes our way. And since making the jump to administration, that's been one of my favorite things. Is every day is different. You're always on your toes. There's no playbook. There's no situation where you handle it the same way each time. And that's always been something I've enjoyed about these roles.
Something fun for listeners. I will share a story. Let's see if it makes the cut. So it's interesting for Dave and I. So coming out of the roles that we were in, student services and teaching and learning, and then getting into this summer. So we take over July 1, and there was a time we were walking out to our cars and we were looking around, and there were weeds. There were weeds overgrown in the parking lot. And I looked at Dave and I said, who's in charge of this place? Like, can we get these weeds cut down? And we had a good laugh, like, wow, how your lens and your scope changes when you're in charge.
Sure.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the buck has to stop.
It does. At the end of the day, we're in charge of
a lot of those end up at your desk. Yeah. There you go.
And the weeds have been removed, for the record.
Mr. Aguilar,
they're gone.
Any surprises? What do you think?
I think what's most surprising for me is that at the end of the day, I always take a time to kind of reflect on the course of the day, send out some emails that I needed to send out. And I always have a to-do list for the very next day. And what surprises me is that more often than not, as soon as I get in the office and I open up my computer, there's an email that wasn't on my to-do list that I need to now attend to. And that just starts just a different course of what I had already planned out. But as Mr. Sally stated, I think this is one of the beauties of this position and being a school leader, in that there is no playbook. Things do change pretty rapidly, but I enjoy it. I love it. And it's all about, as Dr. Martino stated, having the right people in place. Even though we are a small knit community at Blackhawk, everybody knows their role. Everybody's really great, and everybody's really dedicated to kind of help support our students and work in tandem as a team there at Blackhawk.
That's good. And as administrators, we know we have job descriptions, and we also know in the job description there's a bullet that says "and other duties as assigned," and that tends to make up a good portion of our days at times. Mr. Sally, you transitioned from overseeing student services at the high school to a role where you now guide overall building operations. How has this shift broadened your perspective on what it takes to foster a supportive environment for students and staff?
Yeah, so I can say I've truly enjoyed every step along my journey here in administration in District 129. That being said, this latest role with the operations focus has really just, in my mind, been a natural fit for me. The two things I keep going back to, problem solving and teamwork, kind of remain at the core of what I'm doing in this role. And overseeing operations and building this size can't be done alone. And so we rely on our staff to submit the work orders. We rely on our students. We just did an organic life roundtable with our food service provider, where they were able to give some very honest feedback to our food service. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our building custodians, our building custodial engineers, and I have to loop my office professional Liz Drenthi in that group. They truly are the backbone of what gets done every day and make that place go. And then the last thing for me personally, and then Whitney knows this, people who know me well know this, I have always had this kind of fascination with athletic facilities, whether it's professional sporting arenas, large, small colleges, high school gyms. I've always been super intrigued at just the design, the character, the branding, all that stuff. And this role has allowed me to take that kind of eye for detail and bring it to not just athletic venues, but the whole building level. And, it's something that I know Whitney's very passionate about too, that we want to create and invest in these spaces and make them as appealing as we can. And on top of that, I'm also a high school sports junkie. So now when I go to high school football games, high school basketball games, I'm obviously very involved in what's going on the floor or the field or the court, but I'm also taking pictures of their banners and taking pictures of their bleachers and sending it to Buckley and Whitney and to kind of get our creative juices going. So it's been a very fun aspect to kind of view now in this new role.
That's good.
Well, and Dave is so much of a junkie, an athletic junkie, right? But he's not. I mean, I know you think, he's really into college sports, and so he's like, what team does he cheer for? What Division I team is he? No. Dave is a D3 college junkie, okay? So it's we call him D3 Dave.
All right.
Very unique to his role and his situation.
I will remember that moniker for the future. Thank you. I appreciate
D3
that.
Dave.
All right. So Dr. Martino and Mr. Aguilar, something when I speak with leaders, as I work with principals, the process of thinking when you lead, you have to hurry up and slow down at the same time. You have to be thinking about the future, but you have to slow down enough to address today. This question is more focused on the future, though. And as you sit in your roles as principals, you think about the future, both immediate and long term. What are your hopes for the students who pass through your halls?
I'll go back to, we want our students to be academically prepared with skills and mindset so that they can choose their post-secondary path. It is difficult often talking to 13, 14-year-old freshmen as they think about, what do you want to do after high school? But that is when the thinking, we really want it to grow and start. And we want that senior, as they graduate, and we know that they may choose a path right after high school and they have to change direction or they decide to do something else. But we want them to be equipped with the knowledge, the opportunity knowledge to know what that is. And they can look back and say, I am where I am, or I am doing what I am doing because of West High. Not in spite of their experience, but because we were there to give them the opportunity knowledge to have the academic preparation so that they can be equipped to succeed in whatever they choose to do.
That's good. Mr. Aguilar, what do you think?
Kind of piggyback on what Dr. Martino said. With Blackhawk being an alternative program, I want our students to be able to reflect on their time at Blackhawk as a time where they decided to make some decisive changes in their life, whether that be small or big, that really kind of had an impact on their life, in which they recognized that they needed more support. They needed to build certain skills, whether that's behavioral or social emotional, but they took the initiative to make those changes. And Blackhawk was the starting point of changes in their life.
Sure. No, thank you. Both of you articulated something that I know we all hope for our students, and that when the chair is presented, they can scoot up to that table knowing that they've earned the right to be there. And that piece of paper, high school diploma, opportunity, certificates, whatever opportunity or door they are presented with, they have the skill set to walk through and flourish. And I know that is a goal that we all long to support. And that's what wakes us up, quite honestly. So I appreciate that both of you shared that. Finally, as a last question for the three of you, we've talked about defining ownership amongst our leadership team, or outlining what it looks like, feels like, and sounds like to own instruction and own the position that you're in as a district leader. A question I will ask each guest, and what I now ask you: what does ownership look like as a building leader?
One of the things we talk about as an admin team, and I take to heart is I use the phrase, it might not be my fault, but it's now my problem. And when you see something or walk upon something, I think really owning it is saying, okay, that's not what we want this to look like, or that's not how the building should function, or this is a concern. And we could talk about all the reasons it's happening, all the different things that are going on and why that occurred, but that's just a waste of time, honestly. We've got to look at it and say, but it's now our problem, and let's fix it.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, I think ownership to me is rooted in a combination of practicing what you preach and just committing to being present in what you're doing. Some parenting advice my mother gave me was that there are 3 ways children learn: by example, by example, and by example. And I see this translated to leadership as well. And we all know one of the most damaging things you can do as a leader is to expect more from those around you than you expect from yourself. And then in terms of just being present, the more formal settings, whether it's a post-observation with a teacher, more informal, talking to a parent at a band concert last week, just making sure that you're giving them your full attention. And the phrase I always revert back to is be where your feet are. Make sure your head and heart are there with you as well in all of those interactions you have with those people around you.
That's good. That's good. I appreciate those little nuggets.
Absolutely.
In 30 seconds, you gave us a few of them, so we'll take it. I love it. Thanks to both of you. And finally, Mr. Aguilar, what does ownership look like?
Yeah. Well, Dave Sally kind of stole what I was going to say, but I was going to say that it's ownership for me is leading by example, really showcasing not only what you bring to the table, but doing it yourself. And then when things aren't going well, or when you're falling behind on it, whether it's an email or just communication, owning that up and saying, this is on me. This is where I need to improve on, and then just being open and honest about your strengths and your areas of growth. So just leading by example always goes a long way.
I love it. And thank you to the 3 of you for coming in, spending some time with us here and having a conversation with me. We do not take our leadership roles lightly. And I can honestly say from my seat as superintendent, I truly appreciate the example and model that each of you sets for the communities that you're looking to lead this year. And I look forward to partnering with you as we continue to move forward. And with that, Dr. Martino, Mr. Sally, Mr. Aguilar, thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Please remember that you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, SoundCloud, and the TuneIn Radio app. I would encourage you to subscribe to our broadcast and stay tuned for next month's episode featuring the principals of Fern and McCleary Elementary Schools. Have a great day.